Lady and gentlemen, this is the all-new Lexus Avalon. Well, no, obviously I'm kidding, but believe me you when I tell you that this 2022 Toyota Mirai, second of its name, could have certainly and absolutely worn a Lexus badge. I'll tell you more about the luxury and the smoothness and the refinement of this car later on in the video. Oh yeah, also 2022 model year at the time of recording this video and my test drive. 2023 model year information in Canada was about 10 days away. So in the review, which will be published on Motor Illustrated, obviously, the information will be good. But for the review, for the video, I mean, 2022 model year information only, specifically pricing and standard equipment. Okay, so this is a very short-term loan also, and there's a number of reasons for that. One being refueling, which is this car's biggest issue, and I'll try and make it make sense very shortly. With this car now, what I find myself doing every time I'm around it or driving it, I'm thinking about, and I'm going to oversimplify everything here, the past, the present, and the future. Okay, so some 115 years ago, give or take, there were EVs and internal combustion engine vehicles, oil, okay? And it was decided for a number of reasons that EVs were not sustainable, that we had to go the way of oil. Fair enough. Now, from today, 50 years ago, we realized that the diesels and the petrol-powered cars were not exactly the best thing. They weren't the worst, but they weren't the best. So now today, 2022, 2023, we're pretty much lined up with what's going to happen in the next decade to 12 years or so. And that's, well, we're going to leave behind the internal combustion engine as far as new car sales are concerned, and we're going to go full EV. But this time there's also another player. Fuel cell vehicles, hydrogen-powered electric vehicles. The reason why I bring this up is it conceivable that in the next 15 years, after 2035, when everybody goes EV, except for Wisconsin, of course, that we will have made a mistake to shun FCEVs? Because essentially that's what's going to happen. I mean, what might happen in 15 years? I don't know. Somebody will invent a machine that can easily, effortlessly, with a minimal amount of energy and absolutely safely extract hydrogen from the air around us and put it in a tank, and we can refuel these cars at home. Very, very unlikely, but what do I know? I'm not a chemist, I'm not a scientist. I can barely spell my own name. Anyway, but yeah, the issue, and I kind of just touched on it, is refueling and infrastructure. Because as we move into EVs, we are dealing with developing a new or expanding the existing infrastructure of recharging stations, of charging stations for EVs. FCEVs, fuel cell electric vehicles, have the exact same problem. They need an infrastructure, a layout to refuel these cars. And it seems highly unlikely, given the efforts and the resistance is the wrong word, but the efforts required to actually just set up charging stations for EVs, that somebody, be it a company or the government, is going to invest hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever to set up an equivalent and as complete infrastructure to charge these vehicles as well. I mean, right now, as it stands, first, the 2022 and 2023 Toyota Mirai is only available for sale in Quebec and British Columbia, the two provinces in Canada. And it only is available for sale in the US, in the state of California. But Canada specifically, there are only 8 refueling stations recognized by Toyota. One of them being in Quebec City, which from my home is about 235 kilometers away. I don't know what to say. This look, I'm gonna kind of jump to the conclusion here. This car is extraordinary in so many ways, but it has no future. But it is part of Toyota's plans to diversify, to allow consumers so many different options over just going electric. And I get that, I understand that, but I can't see how this car has much of a future. Anyhow, in the following video, as per the usual, we're going to take a walk around this dirty Mirai, and I bet you've never seen one on the road before. I know, I have never seen one, and this is an XLE, which is more likely to be found on the road compared to a Limited, which I'm pretty sure I will never see on the road. And I never saw a first generation Mirai on the road either, other than the press unit some years ago. This is going to be a long video, I'm so sorry. So walk around, dirty car, smooth, comfortable drive. Here we go. All right, let's just go with styling. I hesitate to say that this is a pretty car, but it certainly is not ugly. I mean, it's got a very swept back 5-door hatchback silhouette to it, and actually it is kind of pretty. I mean, the only thing that's weird visually on this car is the rear, the way it's kind of tucked and wrapped under like that. But that's it. Essentially, that's it. That's the end of the negative complaints as far as looks on this car are concerned. I mentioned this was an XLE, so in Canada for 2022 it starts at $54,990. I would suspect that for 23 add $2,000 to the pricing, give you an idea of what you can expect. The equivalent car in the US is $49,500, and that's for 2023. The top trim, the Limited, the one you'll probably never see, at least not in Quebec and probably not in BC, is $76,750 in Canada for the 2022, 66 grand even for 23 in the US. I mean, the base level of equipment is decent for the car. I mean, you get the 19-inch wheels, a 12.3-inch touchscreen display, JBL audio, heated Softex leather, heated steering wheel, 8-inch digital instrument panel. Stepping up to the Limited really doesn't make any sense, at least to me. I mean, for the $22,000 almost supplement, you got 20-inch wheels, panoramic sunroof, heated cooled seats, LED lights all over the place, a heads-up display, and a bunch of other stuff. I don't know, I may have missed something as far as the specs are concerned, but that's just completely insane. Yeah, it's a fine car. Let's just do the quick tour. Inside, I mean. I can do this. There it is. Okay, yeah, so no power hatch. That, my friends, is 272 liters of trunk space. So that's a problem, despite, oh yeah, I forgot to mention the dimensions. So despite the overall size of the car, which, I mean, if you want an idea, like overall length, it's almost identical to an Avalon. So me calling it a Lexus Avalon isn't entirely crazy. And the wheelbase is a couple of centimeters longer on the Mirai over the Avalon. So the footprint is almost identical between the two cars. The other, while we're on issues, is pricing, small trunk. But with the long wheelbase though, access to the rear seat is really, really snug. It's actually kind of tight. I mean, if you look at it this way, see how far forward the seat is versus the cut for the door. But once you're inside, it's not so bad. The seat back really allows you to squeeze in or slide back. By the way, this is supposed to be a 5-seater, but this cushion, the central part, is incredibly uncomfortable. The tunnel is actually enormous. Perspective a little bit difficult there. So this is not a place where you want to sit for any period of time. And the getting out, I mean, it's a little bit of an activity, let's just say. Okay, so let's go up front. I mean, Softex seats are beautiful, extremely comfortable, supple, very lovely. it's really on. It really is on the border between Lexus and Toyota as far as the layout and the buttons and the level of comfort. Let's start it up. Oop, I can't reach around. All right. Okay, so let's zoom out. We will try and do this. There we go. Okay, taking one glove off. So there's your 8-inch display. Okay, so just so you know, the reason why it's such a short-term loan, is that they can't refuel the car to the max. I can only get about a half tank's worth. So that's my remaining range. What else can I show you? I'm trying to get the other glove off. This is an interesting button. So every time you will shut the car off, it will purge itself. So if you don't want that to happen, so the water that comes out of the tailpipe, you can switch it off by pressing the button so you don't slide on ice during the winter, for example. What happens to it after it, I don't know. So, I mean, there's not much else to tell as far as this is concerned. I do like the fact that there's some hard buttons. Everything's pretty straightforward. You got the split screen, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, it's all included, not a problem. The shifter itself, it's essentially right out of a Prius. So it's the same principle down. That's for maximum brake regen, park, your HVAC controls, wireless charging. As far as storage is concerned, this isn't. Not much here. This is fairly generous, I must say. And then, the dashboard, it's actually, you can pinch the soft text material on the dashboard. It's really nice and soft. Fit and finish is beautiful. Visibility is excellent, actually. Look at the size of that opening right there. It's really a premium place to be. For refueling. I think I'm doing it right. Yep. There isn't much else to tell. So I guess now is drive time. Okay, so driving the Lexus Avalon has been an extremely soothing and comfortable experience. We'll start with that, I guess, though it might not be the most interesting thing about the Mirai, but the chassis, the way it's tuned, is it's designed for just relaxed cruising. The suspension is a multi-link, fully independent, all-around layout. But that doesn't say anything really. What we have here is the most comfortable and refined, quiet, docile driving Toyota and Lexus vehicle that I have driven probably since the Lexus LS, from not this generation but the previous one, which I think was the last one I drove I don't even remember, 6 years ago. I can't remember exactly. Point is that if you want the best in Lexus comfort, you gotta get a hydrogen powered Toyota Mirai. Obviously the electric powertrain aids as far as that's concerned. It's whisper quiet. It sounds like a Toyota hybrid, which I think maybe a number of people don't realize, that the simplest way to explain the powertrain in the Mirai, this fuel cell electric vehicle, is that it's kind of like a Toyota hybrid vehicle, meaning that there's an engine or something that creates power up front and a small battery that both work together in a hybrid way, where the battery supplements the engine's power and vice versa, while the engine can recharge the battery. And the big difference is that the motor in here, or the generator in here, creates electricity that powers a rear-mounted electric motor. It's the same, but it's completely different. You know what I mean? Said battery is a 1.24 kilowatt hour system, so there's nothing it's electric, but no, there's no battery per se because, well, the hydrogen, which mixes with oxygen in the atmosphere, will combine to create electricity, which is what feeds the electric motor in the rear. Said electric motor produces 182 horsepower and 300 pound-feet of torque. Now this is pretty much my biggest, well, disappointment is the wrong word, but let down when it comes to this car, and that's that unlike all other EVs, including a Soul or a Leaf, you know, the smaller engine, just one single motor, this thing is it's slow. It's like 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in about 9.5 seconds. This is a different time, a different type of. I mean, there's no performance whatsoever to expect from this, but that's not the goal. But you know, when you put the hammer down, even in sport mode, I don't know why there's a sport mode. It really doesn't make any sense. I can barely feel the difference on initial throttle application. Never mind after that. But what it is that, you know, it's docile, smooth, linear power. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. There's just not much of it, and this car weighs, with my butt in it, about 4,500 pounds, which is a lot. The goal is efficiency. I think I just noted that, because the range on a full tank, now this can handle up to 5.6 kilograms of hydrogen when the tanks are full. When they are full, with the hybrid assistance and all that, range is rated at 647 kilometers in the XLE. It's a little bit wow, that's the road, not the car. A little bit less in the Limited because it's actually heavier and it's got 20-inch wheels. Unfortunately, I can't speak to range because there was no way for me to get a full tank of hydrogen in this car, which, by the way, the refill takes about 5 minutes. Now, I witnessed a very, very brief, say 1/4 to half refill, and it took less than 3 minutes. I have a little bit of footage on that. So at half tank, indicated range was 207 kilometers. It is cold outside. It is winter. There isn't much snow on the ground, on the roads per se. So 647 seems far-fetched, even in wintry conditions, because a half tank will give me 1/3, less than 1/3 of the rated range. Beyond that, there's not much else that I can add. I mean, steering is fine, brakes are fine. Oh, brakes, regen, like the Prius, and you can set the transmission in B for maximum regen braking. The thing with this car is that as soon as you give more than 5% throttle, it knocks itself out. Like, you cannot drive at length or at speeds with max regen on. So I can't imagine that it has much of an impact on the total range available for this car. All right. Conclusion is, if you want one of these cars, I don't know why you would, but other than the comfort. But if you're gonna refuel, if you live in BC, there's one. These are Toyota recognized charging stations, or refueling stations, I should say. There's one in Victoria on Vancouver Island. There's one in Kelowna, and five in the greater Vancouver area. There are a few more in the province of Quebec than the one recognized refueling station in the city of Quebec. But there's just no. And I was refueled via existing filled up reservoirs. So there's no actual pump, and there's not an actual station. That's why the way it was refueled cannot generate enough pressure to fill the tanks beyond the halfway point. I hope that makes sense. But the bottom line is, you can't refuel it, so there's no point in buying one. Will you be able to refuel these in the future, in 5 years? I seriously doubt it. As a daily user of this, unless you have a company with your own station or something like that. I don't think I'm wrong, but I mean, I've been wrong so often in my life. This is just an alternative being offered by Toyota to demonstrate that there are viable, in a way, options other than going full EV. But for you and I, for mass consumption, for consumers as a whole, this is not an option. It's too bad, because this is a lovely automobile. And that's it.